What if our world isn't quite the same world we grew up in? Ever since CERN fired up the Large Hadron Collider, people all over the globe have reported strange glitches in reality. Events that don't line up with our memories, bizarre scientific anomalies, and whispers of parallel universes bleeding into ours. The scientists at CERN were looking for answers about the universe, but some believe they may have cracked open something much bigger, much scarier. Today we're going to look at 10 disturbing signs that CERN may have actually ripped through reality. In 2010, a disturbing rumor started to spread that CERN might accidentally create a strangelit, a hypothetical particle that could turn all matter it touched into more strange matter. If that happened, it could consume the entire planet in seconds. Now, mainstream physicists dismissed the idea as unlikely. Leaked safety reports revealed that certain scientists had actually debated the risk though. That alone was enough to frighten the public, and then years later, satellites recorded massive, unexplained bursts of radiation in Earth's upper atmosphere, the kind of anomaly some theorists connect to strange matter interactions. Now, no official link was ever made to CERN, but the coincidence fueled suspicion that the collider may have been brushing up against forces powerful enough to destabilize reality itself. For people already uneasy about the collider, the strangelit panic was a sign we might be playing with fire. In 2016, CERN admitted they were running experiments to detect micro-black holes. Scientists reassured the public that these would be harmless and would evaporate instantly, but even the possibility was enough to unsettle some people. Micro-black holes are not like anything we can fully predict with current physics, and in theory, they could pierce the fabric of space-time itself. At almost the exact same time, people began reporting unusual phenomena. Sinkholes opening up without warning, mysterious booms heard across different countries, and strange lights in the sky. None of these events were officially connected to CERN, obviously, but the overlap in timing was suspicious. If micro-black holes were being created, even briefly, it is possible they didn't disappear quietly. Instead, they may have left tiny scars in reality that we're still living with today. When CERN announced the discovery of the Higgs boson in 2012, newspapers around the world called it God's particle. But behind the excitement, some scientists quietly raised some alarms. Theoretical physicists warned that if the Higgs field was unstable, it could trigger a vacuum collapse, an unstoppable chain reaction that would spread at the speed of light and erase reality as we know it. Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek went on record suggesting the discovery could pose a real danger to the universe. Strangely, that same year, reports of Mandela Effect cases surged. Entire groups of people started insisting that logos, movie quotes, geography, that it all changed. Could this be coincidence, or did the discovery of the Higgs particle alter our universe so fundamentally we actually shifted into a safer version of reality without realizing it? The 2014 Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 disappeared without a trace, becoming one of the greatest aviation mysteries in history. Well, official investigations eventually concluded that it probably just crashed into the Indian Ocean. No large wreckage was found for years, and what made the event more unsettling was the timing though. The disappearance happened during a period when CERN was running some of its most aggressive collision experiments. A small but vocal group of people suggested that if CERN had destabilized space-time, objects could literally fall out of our dimension. People online share some seriously strange experiences, and ever since CERN started doing their experiments, there's been this conspiracy that it's caused some issues with our perceived reality. On Reddit and TikTok, users have posted about suddenly losing track of time, like checking the clock and realizing an hour or more has passed with no memory of it. Could CERN's activities be causing reality glitches, time travel even, opening portals or altering timelines? Now, all this stuff is anecdotal and unverifiable, but they do add to this growing list of weird phenomena people associate with CERN. One Reddit user posted about how since CERN's Large Hadron Collider was turned back on, they've noticed more instances of the Mandela Effect, like misremembered logos and song lyrics. Is there hard scientific evidence linking CERN's experiments to this stuff? No, of course not, but the sheer volume of personal accounts is pretty interesting. CERN just kicked off something totally new at the LHC. For the first time ever, protons are smashing into oxygen ions. From late June to early July, the collider switched into a special mode. 2 days of proton-oxygen collisions, 2 days of oxygen to oxygen, and a day of neon collisions. Each type of collision creates completely different particle showers, giving scientists a crazy amount of data to study, everything from cosmic rays to what's called quark-gluon plasma, which is the super hot soup that existed just after the Big Bang. See, right after the Big Bang, the universe was insanely hot and dense, and matter as we know it didn't exist yet. Instead, quarks and gluons, the building blocks of protons and neutrons, floated around freely in a soup before cooling down to form normal atoms. So making these collisions happen is really tricky. Protons and oxygen ions act differently in the accelerator, so if you just let them go, they wouldn't meet, they drift apart. Engineers have to carefully adjust how fast each beam goes and how much momentum it has, so they smash together right in the middle of the LHC's 4 big detectors. CERN is now using AI to help run the Large Hadron Collider, and it's changing everything. The collider smashes protons together millions of times every second, creating a huge flood of data. And obviously, humans can't sort through all of it, so AI decides almost instantly which collisions are worth keeping and which ones to ignore. One of the strangest things scientists are studying is the Higgs boson. You can think of the Higgs like an invisible molasses that sticks to particles and slows them down. That sticking is what gives particles their mass, basically what makes them heavy enough to form atoms, planets, stars, everything we see. Without the Higgs, the universe would just be a soup of energy with no real stuff in it. Normally, we only see one Higgs at a time, but CERN wants to catch 2 at once to see if the rules about how it works are really correct. If it behaves differently than expected, it could mean something about reality itself isn't as stable as we thought. CERN scientists recently discovered something they're calling a ghost inside of one of their oldest particle accelerators, the super proton synchrotron, or SPS. It's a weird energy pattern that makes particles behave strangely as they race around the 4-mile-wide ring. To break this down, imagine rolling marbles around a circular track. Normally they follow the path smoothly, but if the track wobbles a little or a marble hits a tiny bump, it can bounce or speed up in weird ways. That's what's happening with these particles. They're supposed to stay on this tight path, but tiny changes in the magnets make them wiggle and shift unpredictably. This effect is called a resonance, and it's like the particles are syncing up with each other in ways no one fully understands. Scientists can map it in 4 dimensions, basically tracking how it changes over time. And they're noticing these patterns can repeat, almost like the machine has its own heartbeat. If these ghosts, so to speak, weren't controlled, particles could scatter, lose energy, or create unexpected bursts of power. Ever since CERN began its collision experiments, people all across Europe have been reporting something unsettling. A low, constant hum. Some giant machine running underground. It's not coming from traffic, planes, or factories, and seismologists haven't tied it to earthquakes either. These hums often show up right after CERN is running intense experiments. Physicists at CERN haven't officially confirmed any kind of link, but some independent researchers think it could be tied to resonance. In simple terms, that's when, again, one vibration starts matching another and amplifies it. All those massive magnets and particles flying around at crazy speeds, it's possible the collider is making the ground itself vibrate. Some people even wonder if this hum is more than just a sound. Maybe it's a sign that the experiments are doing something weird beyond the lab. CERN is creating energy levels so extreme, some people wonder if the technology could be weaponized. Birds and other animals around the collider have been dying right when experiments are running, and deep in the lab, an experiment is firing particles that might vanish into dark matter. These are more disturbing signs CERN may have ripped through reality. Everyone thinks CERN is just this massive science lab where physicists smash particles together trying to figure out how the universe works. That's part of it, but some things about it have made people a little uneasy. There's been talk, nothing officially confirmed, but talk that some of the technology developed at CERN, especially the particle beams, could have military uses. Particle beams, in theory, could carry huge amounts of energy over long distances. People start wondering if some of the knowledge or data from the collider could be useful for defense research. Even if CERN is strictly doing science, it's hard to ignore the overlap between what they're creating and what could be weaponized. The collider is a 4-mile ring that can recreate conditions that haven't existed since the first fractions of a second after the Big Bang. That kind of energy is insane, so it's not hard to imagine that particle beams could do way more than just smash protons together. People living around CERN have sometimes noticed weird things with animals, especially birds. Over the years, there have been reports of flocks suddenly dropping dead or animals acting strangely near the collider. Nothing official has ever connected this directly to CERN's experiments, but the timing and location does make some people wonder. It's easy to shrug it off as coincidences or natural events, but when it keeps happening around the same giant machines smashing protons at nearly the speed of light, I don't know. Some swear they've seen birds suddenly fall from the sky, animals acting all erratic near open fields close to the facility. Scientists would point out the particle beams are safely contained and there's no evidence of radiation leaks, but they're also dealing with pretty cutting-edge experimental stuff here. You can't anticipate everything. Even a subtle magnetic or electromagnetic influence could, in theory, disrupt the wildlife in ways that we just can't fully comprehend yet. And it's not just the animals. People near CERN sometimes talk about a certain strangeness in the air during active runs. Now, could that be paranoia? Yes. Could there also be something genuinely odd happening? Maybe. NA64 is an experiment at CERN. The name stands for North Area Experiment 64, and its goal is to find dark matter, the invisible stuff that makes up most of the universe but doesn't interact with light, so we can't see it. Here's how it works in simple terms. Scientists fire a beam of electrons at a target. Normally, when particles hit a target, they make other particles we can detect, like little sparks from a collision, but sometimes energy seems to just vanish completely. Physicists think that missing energy could mean a dark matter particle was made and flew off without interacting with anything we can detect. Every time the electron beam vanishes like this, it's basically poking at a part of reality that we can't normally see. Now, they're not finding anything yet, but each run teaches them a bit more about what dark matter could be and where it hides. It's kind of unsettling when you think about it, though. The experiment is probing a potential realm that's invisible to us. People near CERN have been reporting weird dreams ever since the collider started running at full power. I'm talking alternate reality type stuff here, and it's always right after big collider runs. The timing is really what freaks people out. Someone will have one of these dreams, check the LHC schedule, and realize it happened the same day protons were smashing at record energy. A bunch of these reports started popping up online. People comparing notes, trying to figure out if CERN is somehow affecting their dreams. Now, this could be total BS, or maybe the collider is briefly warping reality. Sounds nuts, but the complete vanishing of a massive passenger jet without debris or signals, that is kind of suspicious. Could it be that the plane didn't simply crash, but slipped into a different reality altogether? Of course, there's no official evidence, but the timing has got people raising some questions. Something unusual happened in 2016. Around the world, people started reporting reality glitches at a much higher rate than ever before. Famous movie lines no longer matched what people remembered. Historical dates were slightly off, and even geography seemed to change in subtle but noticeable ways. I remember me personally, I learned about the Mandela Effect in 2016. CERN's collider reached record-breaking energy levels that year, though, smashing protons together at 13 tera-electronvolts, which is the highest energy ever achieved in human history. Some researchers speculated that at such extreme energy levels, CERN might have briefly accessed parallel universes or altered the quantum structure of our own. For ordinary people, 2016 felt like the year the world suddenly tilted in some strange ways, as if we had merged, maybe with another timeline. CERN really was opening tiny doors into parallel universes. This may have been the moment when two of them fused into one. In June of 2016, residents living near CERN's facility in Geneva began circulating photographs of a bizarre swirling vortex that appeared in the sky directly above the collider. The images showed this dark circular cloud formation that looked eerily like a portal opening in the atmosphere. Around the same time, the region was hit by unusually intense lightning storms, adding to the eeriness of it all. Meteorologists insisted it was a weather phenomenon, but for a lot of people, the coincidence was just too weird. CERN was running its most powerful experiments ever, and suddenly, this perfect vortex appeared above it. Even now, the photographs are online. and there's theories that CERN may have accidentally torn open a hole in space-time, if only for a brief moment. For those already wary of the collider, it didn't really ease their feelings about it. Standing outside CERN's headquarters is a bronze statue of the Hindu god Shiva, known as the Cosmic Destroyer. The statue itself is real. It was gifted to CERN by the Indian government in 2004. But in 2016, something strange happened. There was a leaked video that showed people in lab coats performing what appeared to be a ritual sacrifice in front of the statue. CERN dismissed the footage as a prank staged by employees, but some people were pretty disturbed by the imagery. Shiva's role in Hindu mythology is destroy one cycle of existence so that another can begin. Kind of a fitting symbol for a facility smashing the building blocks of reality apart. Staged or not, the video really didn't do much to help ease people's suspicions, all the conspiracies and stuff. I don't know, are they meddling with things bigger than they're letting on? Who knows? In 2017, scientists noticed strange anomalies in the Global Positioning System. GPS satellites, which rely on incredibly precise timing, began showing discrepancies that could not be explained by ordinary errors. These glitches appeared soon after CERN ran another round of high-energy experiments. The problem with GPS is that even the slightest distortion in space-time can throw its timing off. Since the system depends on relativity, some quietly speculated that if CERN warped space-time, even for a fraction of a second, the effects could ripple outward and impact satellite networks. Officially, the errors were attributed to software bugs, but skeptics believe this was one of the clearest real-world signs that CERN's activities were bleeding into our everyday reality. For something as critical as GPS, even a small, unexplained glitch can be deeply disturbing. In late 2015, just before CERN announced new high-energy collisions, astrophysicists detected bursts of high-energy particles hitting Earth that could not be explained by solar activity or cosmic rays. These bursts appeared suddenly, spiking detectors across multiple observatories. What made this so unsettling was, again, the timing lined up almost perfectly with CERN ramping up the collider to nearly double the energy it was before. Official reports avoided making a connection, of course, but researchers admitted they'd never seen anything quite like this. Some theorists suggested that if CERN's experiments had briefly punctured space-time, energy could have leaked out as a kind of particle storm hitting Earth from nowhere. The anomaly eventually faded, but for many, it remains one of the most disturbing signs that CERN's work may not be fully contained. Finally, imagine waking up one day and realizing your memories don't match reality. That is exactly what millions of people began experiencing around 2010, shortly after CERN's collider started running at full power. The Mandela Effect, a phenomenon where entire groups of people remember history differently. It suddenly exploded in popularity around this time. Some swore Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s, only to discover he lived till 2013. Others said childhood staples like the Berenstain Bears is now Bernstein Bears, and CERN's high-energy experiments started in 2008. Within 2 years, all these collective memory glitches, they seem to be getting talked about a lot more. Skeptics say it's just people's faulty memory, but the number of people experiencing the same misremembered details, it makes some people wonder if we slipped into an alternate timeline. If CERN's experiments really did shift us to a new version of reality, the Mandela Effect might be the first widespread clue. CERN just cranked the Large Hadron Collider up to a new record, smashing protons together with higher energy than ever before, and some wonder if these collisions could be bending reality itself. Scientists are hunting for faint energy signals from a shadow universe that could be leaking into ours, and one researcher even claims there's a secret portal deep underground, letting non-human entities in and out. These are more disturbing signs CERN may have ripped through reality. Just back in May, CERN fired up the Large Hadron Collider again, this time hitting a new record with 13.6 trillion electron volts in proton collisions, higher than anything we've seen before. After 3 years of upgrades and maintenance, the collider is finally running at full power again, smashing protons almost constantly to collect massive amounts of data, and scientists are hoping to find new particles or forces that could explain some of the universe's biggest mysteries. The higher energy means collisions are more intense and more frequent, which also opens up the door to weird possibilities. Some wonder if extreme collisions like these could be be doing more than creating particles we can detect? Could they be nudging the fabric of reality in ways we don't understand yet? Even if nothing visibly bizarre happens, every time the LHC hits a new energy record, there's a chance that something unexpected could be happening. LHC season is in full swing. If anything unusual were to happen, like tiny glitches in space-time, unexplained energy bursts, or subtle shifts in reality, this is the time. Now, CERN is actually hunting for signs of a completely hidden universe. Using the compact muon solenoid, or CMS detector, scientists have been looking for what they call soft, unclustered energy patterns. In plain English, these are tiny bursts of energy that don't form into normal particles like we usually see. And this sounds nuts, but there's a hypothesis that they could come from a hidden realm, sometimes called the Hidden Valley, a shadow version of our universe filled with particles we can't normally detect. The idea is that some of these hidden particles could briefly appear in collisions and interact with our world through a sort of mediator particle, creating faint signals that our detectors might pick up. These particles could decay into something called dark protons, which could, in theory, turn into ordinary particles like electrons or muons, tiny traces of another universe leaking into ours. Now, nothing like this has been detected yet. The experiments are brand new and super tricky. These energy patterns are faint and they spread out, so they're easy to miss among all the normal particles created in the collider. Still, the fact that CERN is deliberately searching for hidden realms in the first place, that's incredibly cool and a little unsettling. If these hidden valley particles exist, it means the collider could be brushing against a parallel dimension, even if only for a fraction of a second. And for anyone worried about reality itself, that's a pretty chilling thought. And if you think it's just randos on the internet thinking about this stuff, well, listen to this.
But it is more than that, because there are lots of physicians, I know some, they're doing very strange experimentation. There are beings from portals coming in and out. It's physicists from the CERN who told me this.
They've testified to beings coming in and out of portals.
Yes.
That's scientist and researcher Dr. Astrid Stockelberger from the University of Geneva, talking about things she apparently heard directly from scientists at CERN. She claims she got a rare inside look at CERN after dining with some of the lab's own researchers. According to her, they described a strange portal deep underground, like a door, that supposedly lets non-human entities come and go. She says these beings have also left behind objects and mentioned a connection between CERN and military research, hinting that some experiments might be tied to attempts at manipulating or altering time. Now, these are obviously extraordinary claims, right? And just because she's a scientist doesn't mean you should automatically believe whatever she says, but it is interesting to hear a scientist make claims like this. If there's even a grain of truth to her story, it could mean the collider is dealing with something entirely unknown. CERN scientists just built the world's first antimatter qubit. Antimatter is supposed to be the mirror opposite of regular matter, and when the two touch, they completely annihilate each other. That's why it's so hard to study. But at CERN, researchers managed to trap a single antiproton, keep it stable, and actually use it as a quantum bit, the same kind of unit that runs quantum computers. Now, this isn't about building the next laptop though. What they're really testing is one of the biggest mysteries in science: why anything exists at all. After the Big Bang, matter and antimatter should have canceled each other out instantly. If that happened, there'd be no stars, no planets, no people. Now, clearly that didn't happen. That's where this experiment gets unsettling. Physics is built on a rule called charge, parity, and time reversal symmetry, or CPT symmetry. It's the idea that matter and antimatter are perfect reflections of each other and follow the same laws. But if this antimatter qubit starts showing behavior that doesn't line up, then that rule is not absolute. It would mean that the universe doesn't always follow the rules we thought it did. One thing a lot of people don't realize about CERN is just how powerful the magnets in the Large Hadron Collider really are. These are not like fridge magnets or even the ones used in MRI machines. CERN's magnets are over 100,000 times stronger than Earth's own magnetic field. They're powerful enough to bend beams of protons racing at nearly the speed of light and keep them locked in a circular path. Some folks worry that fields this strong could have side effects outside of the collider. There have been, let's talk about time crystals. Yes, time crystals. That sounds like a MacGuffin in a Marvel movie, but time crystals are actually a thing. They're basically a really strange type of matter. See, normally if you leave something alone, it stops moving eventually. Atoms in a time crystal never stop. They keep flipping or moving back and forth on their own forever. Scientists at CERN are experimenting with these so-called time crystals to see how they interact with particles in their collider. Now, they're not creating a portal to another dimension or anything like that, at least not intentionally, but the fact that something can move endlessly on its own is kind of nuts. When you combine that with the enormous energy of the Large Hadron Collider smashing particles at near light speed, well, it's easy to imagine that some unintended crazy things can happen. Time crystals are harmless by themselves, but they do show us that there are a lot of things in the universe we just can't even begin to understand. CERN has a lot of odd little details around the campus that have caught people's attention, mainly to do with the number 666. Some of the older equipment and walkways have markings that, if you squint, do line up with the number, kind of. And there was also a thing about a year back about 666 being hidden in the CERN logo. And people really take patterns like this seriously because, for one, this is the internet, and people have a lot of time on their hands, and two, CERN is a place where engineers and physicists are obsessed with precision. So, to be fair to this conspiracy, repeated symbols don't usually happen by accident. There's nothing proving any kind of ritual or secret meaning, but when you do consider all the other strange things, like the mysterious hums under Geneva that we talked about, I believe in part 2, or reports of weird glitches in reality, and just the nature of the experiments themselves, well, it's easy to see why some people find the symbolism kind of creepy. It's the kind of weird reality glitch story that people will talk about when conspiracies surrounding CERN are brought up. Plus, this happened in 2009, about a year after CERN started doing their current tests. So back in 2009, a guy named James Richards says he had one of the weirdest experiments of his life in California. He was out driving near Del Porto Canyon with his dog when the dog bolted after a rabbit. James chased after it, tripped, hit his head, and blacked out. When he came to, he wasn't where he fell. He was in a room, and it looked kind of normal at first, but there were also machines he didn't recognize. A man then introduced himself as Jonas and told James that he worked for a, quote, dimensional travel agency. According to Jonas, while James was unconscious, he'd been transported to a parallel version of Earth. This other Earth, it looked a lot like ours, but with some major differences. For one, in Jonas's world, the Beatles were still alive and making music. James was skeptical, obviously, until Jonas handed him a cassette tape labeled Everyday Chemistry. On it were Beatles songs that don't exist here. James brought the tape back when he returned to our world and later posted the whole thing on his website, which you can listen to. People living near CERN sometimes say that during big collider experiments, the night sky can get a little weird. Stars they always see suddenly vanish for a few seconds. One minute everything looks normal, the next chunks of the sky are just gone. Astronomers haven't reported anything unusual, and satellites aren't showing missing stars either, but for the people who notice this, the timing is kinda sus. Some wonder if all that raw energy underground could somehow bend light and mess with the atmosphere just enough to make stars disappear. Even if it's just your eyes or brain playing tricks, a lot of people describe the same thing happening at the same time. Pretty weird. Speaking of weird stories like this, that brings us to this story from Reddit user Electronic Employee 3049, who posted this story about a month back, writing, "I saw something last night and I've been questioning our existence since. My neighbor saw it with me too, so I know it was real. We were watching a satellite go across the sky, right by the third star down the handle on the Big Dipper. The satellite went on by when the unexplainable happened a second later. It was like the sky glitched out for a few seconds, as if someone smeared the sky with their hand in a particular area. Like it was pixelated, or had some strange pattern over it, kind of in a striped, flowing square shape. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but then my neighbor said, 'Dude, did you see that?' I couldn't believe she saw it too. And and then every hair on my body stood straight up. I was speechless, and still am. Are we in a created world? Is this a simulation? What did I just experience? I can't wrap my head around what I saw last night. And finally, there have been rumors from scientists working at CERN that some unusual collision data just vanishes. Certain particle readings, things that don't make sense with known physics, are reportedly removed or corrected before anyone else sees them. People who've worked near the detectors say it's not always a technical error. Some patterns disappear too cleanly, too perfectly. These claims are never officially confirmed, and the researchers talking about it prefer to stay anonymous, which is always a little suspect. But it does make you wonder if CERN is covering up things that could be bigger than anyone realizes.